welcome to another episode of the Holistic Recruiter. Siobhan, I'm super duper happy to have you on the show.
Brilliant. No, great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I know. We had one of my favorite online offline conversations I was going to say a few weeks ago, but it's probably months ago now. You said, yeah, I'll be free in April at some point, and then suddenly it just came around. It seems about 4 months ago.
I know.
But no, do you want to start by telling everybody a little bit about where you're working, what you're doing, what you're up to?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, I'm Siobhan Stericker, everyone. Great to be here. So I work for HMRC, so that's the UK Civil Service, for those of you that aren't aware. And my role is a talent insights and AI lead. It's a brand new team that's just being set up. And yeah, so it's really exciting times.
Now, for those people who may be listening that are not from the UK, HMRC is pretty much everything related to tax and all that type of stuff, right? More or less. And you would not necessarily associate cutting edge technological advances in the way in which you're using tech in this space, right? I know that there's been a lot of work that they've been doing around kind of like digital advancements and the platforms and stuff like that. So I'm really interested how this kind of role came about.
Right, so it's an interesting story, I suppose. So if I just sort of rewind a little bit, so I've been with my team for about 2.5 years. So we sit in talent acquisition, and it's a great innovative team. Absolutely loved it when I I'd say dropped in almost. So I was on a graduate scheme, and I sort of got put into the role that I'm in. Well, I'll say the role that I'm in now, the team that I'm in. And I was really just sort of finding my feet initially, and sort of seemed to sort of take a bit of a drive really towards data insights, talent intelligence. Really was sort of where I was starting to go. So that's where it sort of began. And then, of course, OpenAI released ChatGPT well over a year ago now. It's been about 1.5 years, hasn't it? And I was quite fascinated, really, and just, in my own time, just started playing about with it, just exploring, trying to break it, I suppose. Sort of curiosity coming out in me. I was really lucky as well that I had a few people around me within my team that encouraged that as well, and and there was a very small group of us initially that really thought, wow, this is a really powerful tool. There's blue sky thinking here. What can we do with this? What's the art of the possible? And then it kind of just snowballed from there, really. And then the next thing, it's like, right, we actually want to start really considering how we can use this across the whole of talent acquisition. And so, beginning of this year, I was asked to lead this team in doing just that, really, and seeing where we can take it. So I kind of got two sort of roles really sort of merged into one. With the talent insights, I still keep that because it's something I'm really passionate about. And then, of course, the sort of the AI side as well. And of course, generative AI here, not, my role isn't that technical in that respect. And yeah, just seeing where we can go with it, really. So, and here I am now.
I know. This is exactly how we ended up getting to this conversation. The thing I find really interesting as well is one of the biggest challenges you hear, or pushbacks, I would say, from industry is we can't use OpenAI or we can't use AI tools because of security and because of this and because of that, right? They're worried about their data and all that type of stuff. Do you have any specific guidelines on what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do when it comes to AI?
Yeah, and of course, and especially being a government organisation, it's, security is an absolute priority for us, and we really do need to make sure that we, are safe in what we do. So the way we've tackled this challenge, especially whilst things are still unfolding and we're not quite sure, how to say move forward, is just the way I've gone about it is using just like open source data, so things that are just available already, on the internet, so that there's no sort of real risk there. And we've just, it's almost like, I say similar to, Google search or the internet in terms of how you can get access to data and use that data. We've just, used it in a more innovative way, I suppose. So, it's, I think it's nothing new. It's just the way we're using that data that's already publicly available. And I've sort of incorporated that into, some products, some AI products that myself and my team have built. So I suppose it's helped our team just get a bit more comfortable with using Gen AI. And it's, we've sort of done the prompt engineering in the background for them, because it is a bit like, oh gosh, how do I ask this all powerful thing? And people get really, flummoxed with it, and really, that's where sort of the fear comes out. And yeah, we just we've just used data in I suppose in a clever and innovative way, and almost easily more accessible for our teams, where they might have not thought to go to a particular website to see if they can find some information on whatever it is that that they need, the information that they need, and we've just kind of brought that together really, and so that's how we've sort of initially sort of overcome the challenge. There's nothing, there's absolutely no sensitive data, no personal data. And the way I sort of said, to my team, and when I sort of had that challenge of, oh, well, can we use this, or, what's, and I said, well, it's kind of just like, we as an organisation, we wouldn't put any of our sensitive details into the internet, into a Google search bar, and we're not going to do the same with Gen AI. And that's sort of the mentality we're sort of taken initially.
Yeah, exactly. I always think it's funny about how much people don't realise the people who run these phones and the providers have the amount of information they have on you versus just creating a little video on using an AI tool or something. Like, really, the mobile phone providers have all of the data on everything you're doing, tracking and everything. So sometimes you just have to put things in perspective. But I think Gen AI is something that is really unknown as well. So people are a bit more worried about it because it is unknown. I don't know if you agree. It's where you say the fear that comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've sort of said, that element of, we're just accessing publicly available data, and sort of, boxing that in a way that's easily, available to us and easy to, I say to manage, but it's kind of all in one tool, purposely for, so for example, we've built a tool on like regional insights. So HMRC have 14 regional centres across the UK, and we wanted to build up, a sort of a data picture, wanting to understand the labour market around each of our offices in those regional centre locations. And if you think of the extensive research that you would have to do to get all of that data, I sort of started to pull in things like the ONS data, and being able to scrape the labour market summaries that come out each month, and things like regional news, and bringing that in, to be able to, it's almost there in a manageable sort of package. But then the other element to that then is you really do need sort of guidelines on how these tools can be used. So the biggest thing I say to the current users of this tool is, it's there as a tool, and that's it. It's there to augment skilled people. It's not there to replace you. The people that are using these tools are intelligent. They're knowledge workers. They're great at their craft and what they do, and it's just another source of information, another tool for them to be able to maybe have a bit more of a focused or directed search into what they're doing, and help improve efficiency in terms of the time taken to maybe research a number of different sources. And it's just bringing that together. And then talking of sources as well, it's really, really important to not just rely solely on what, the outputs you're getting. Do go away and check out them sources as well. And again, the tool does provide where those sources have come from. So I think that's really important as well, because we've all heard of the horror stories of the lawyer that used ChatGPT to make up some case law, and it just turned out to not be true. So
But this
it
is the
certainly
point.
has its limitations.
It's everything you're talking about here is that it very much reflects the first series of the podcasts that I did with all the people that all the interviewees and all the guests, sorry. And the key thing that came from this is in talent, it's about how can you be more human centric and people focused, but kind of like powered or kind of supported by tech. And this is another part, it's another element of that, right? And it's I think one of the things that I've seen people struggle with is the use cases of this. And we'll come to this a little bit later. But before we go any further, there is one thing I wanted to ask you that I forgot to ask you at the beginning, is just to help people understand where you're coming from, your background, right? Like you're not an engineer, right?
No.
By from university, but you do have. I feel like I'm talking like Liam Nielsen here. So you have a particular set of skills, right? And could you tell everyone what else you do outside of your day job?
Yeah, sure. So I am also an Army Reservist. So I've been with the Army Reserve now. In fact, it's almost 15 years. I can't believe that. I don't feel old enough to have committed to something for that long. But yeah, I'm Royal Military Police in the Army Reserve as well. So yeah, it's an important part of my life as well, and it does play a huge role, in what I do as well.
And how do you think that doing this or having this part of your life helps you in the role you're doing now?
Oh, I think it's given me so many broad skills and experiences and opportunities. And I think, I suppose, a big part of what I've done in the military as well is the adventure training side. So like being in the outdoors, exposure to risk. And that's definitely where my passion lies, in the military as well. And I think just having that mindset, that almost that mental agility to be able to to not be afraid to try new things, to absolutely get myself out of my comfort zone, and not be afraid to fail as well. I think the way I learn particularly is to actually fail at something and then learn from that and move on. And I think that's probably the biggest element that I've brought is that mindset. So when I was almost dropped into the team that I'm in now, I had no experience in anything that I do now at all. I really didn't. But I just I wasn't afraid to fail. I was totally putting myself out of my comfort zone. And and I suppose just going forward with that. And I think the other thing as well is it's a big you've really got to rely on a team in the military. It can be a matter of life and death. And being able to trust other people is absolutely paramount. So I think again that and taking that into when I sort of reflect on things like my leadership style, I'm very much a part of a team, and I'm very comfortable to say, hey, you know what, I'm really not good at this, but I know you are, so you do that, because that will be what's best for the team. And I think just having that that humility to say, yeah, actually your strengths lie there and mine don't, so please, you go on, we do that. And I think they're the main things really, that I probably take from the military into my day job.
Also comes with so that also goes into self-awareness, right? Like I think that's very like knowing where your limitations are, so that you can rely on your team, and you're better as a collective than you are as an individual, right? You're a sum of all the parts, not just the individual, right? So I think that's quite key. And in terms of, I think this is quite a natural segue into what you were saying, is how could you give an example of taking that risk mindset and taking that not having a fear of failure into what you're doing on the day to day to try and get the team to try and work. You mentioned about like what kind of things did you do to get them playing around with this stuff and that adventurous side? Like, can you tell us how you translated that in?
Yeah, of course. And just a caveat here, when I say sort of risk mindset as well, and taking risks, it's certainly not, in an appropriate way.
Yes,
Certainly not playing around with this sort of stuff, without any consideration. But yeah, so initially, what the team started to do is just everything. Well, right from the beginning, to just sharing tools and sharing experiences to like what you've done on a day to day with it. So it was initially ChatGPT, and then some of it went crazy, didn't it, in terms of all the different tools that were starting to come out, and it was just totally overwhelming. And I think that was probably the other aspect. So it was just like kind of picking a few tools and being like, hey, let's have a look at them, who's used this one, and then from that, we had like lunch and learn sessions set up, an hour every week, no expectations, just coming along, be like, hey, who's done what this week, how have you used it? And not necessarily within work, just generally, day-to-day stuff. We've had so someone shared that they had wrote a letter to school to say, hey, I'm looking at taking my child out for a couple of days during term time and wanting to know how to word it. And then I'd shared, me and my daughter, we'd actually wrote a book, a very short book, a story more, in terms that she would feed in the ideas, so she was sort of almost doing the prompting, and we created this story and then we illustrated it as well. So it was just really basic things in terms of getting people comfortable using the different tools that were available. And then that kind of then, grew and grew, and more people sort of started to come along. And then we kind of went from that to sort of weekly challenges almost. So a bit of gamification, right? Getting people involved that way. So, it might have just been, we're going to create a product, so give your story a backstory. So it got people playing around with sort of copy and how to write in these tools. Then it was the next week it was like, right, now we're going to create picture of your product for that has this backstory. So again, getting them people playing around with the image generation tools. Then we went from that to short videos, so a little clip, a promo video, if you will, of your product, and then all the way right through then to like a marketing strategy, and a jingle as well. That was really,
I
it was
remember you
actually
seeing about
really
this one. Yeah.
fun. Yeah. And it was great. It was getting everyone engaged and talking about it. Someone would have found a particular tool that they thought was great and that they were using, and then they'd share that, and we kept the chat going as well during the week. And then off the back of that as well, when we'd show everyone's sort of products for the week, we got everyone to then go through, what prompts did you use to get to that? So then there was that learning as well, and understanding how everyone else was prompting the different tools, which was quite interesting. And again, someone had managed to say, overcome a challenge that someone else had. So then they would then telling them how they've overcome it. So it wasn't just one or two people saying, oh yeah, this is what we're going to do. It then started to become a bit of a collective and like peer learning, which I think is really important as well, and sort of giving everyone a bit of ownership of like, yeah, I've contributed to this conversation. Whereas when at the beginning, they might have come in and thought, oh, I don't know if, I belong here. I don't know if I should be speaking because I'm not an expert. And I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's an expert, really,
No.
are they? And we
You
were all
might be
just
an
learning.
expert today, and then literally within like one day, that expert is no longer an expert because everything's changed again.
Everything's changed, exactly. And then you feel overwhelmed again, and the
Yeah.
cycle continues. And, and I think just, making sure that everyone was aware of that and, we're all in it together, we're all on this learning journey together was the key, really. And then, so we kind of then got to sort of, I say, a natural close in terms of the different sort of fun elements that we've done with it. Although arguably go back round again because all the image generation tools and the video generation tools of all Excel,
Right.
from when we'd last done it. And then we kind of pivoted then to a bit more work sort of focus. So it's like, right, okay, we've now all got a little bit more comfortable with using these different tools. And that was the thing. It was like getting people comfortable with them. Then it was a case of, right, let's start thinking about now how we can maybe use this for our work. And, that was initially just general admin, day-to-day tasks, whether it was helping writing an email or that, they had maybe a challenging vacancy holder and they wanted to phrase something in a particular way and just maybe getting some ideas of how they can approach that conversation in a different way. So then, things like, helping to write job ads or, how can they use more inclusive language in those job ads or their media outreach posts, when they're promoting the roles on social media. And then so it was just baby steps really in starting to work that way. And then myself and my team, we then started to think, right, okay, what products would be useful for us as a talent acquisition team to utilize, and then that's where we then started to build some of these tools. But then we then started to use these calls, and we still do, to get ideas from the recruiters and the other people in the team to say what would be useful. If if we could just go ahead and build anything, what would it be?
Yeah.
And then obviously bringing it in from there and what is actually possible within the confines of data security and privacy, and making sure that we are sort of transparent in what we're doing.
Right.
And this is very, very early days, but yeah, so that's where we
No,
were
but
sort
this is super
of
cool.
looking to go.
I love the journey of not just going from right now, let's just use everything. It was the baby steps, which is the key to everything, and making people comfortable. What I'm interested in was, I'm just looking at my notes here, was how do you identify what would have the most impact when it comes to creating a particular product or a new process, or whatever it is that you might be doing? And in terms of the tool selection, do you use like things like, I'm assuming it's the government, so you have like Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you using stuff like Copilot or not?
So we're not using Copilot yet.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. And in terms of like an ATS and HRS and all of that type of system, is it one system you have, or is it lots of different systems that you use?
There are a number of different sort of systems, but we kind of stayed away from that side, and because to be fair, we can't control that sort of stuff anyway. So we've just sort of focused on sort of day-to-day tools that we can,
Okay.
that we
Yeah,
can
well, you
access.
can implement. Okay. Because
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
thinking, eventually, when you think of your talent intelligence, eventually at some stage, if this was starting to have such an impact of improvement and showing how it could work, being able to then tap into that data, that would bring a whole other host of issues and challenges. Sorry,
yeah.
challenges. But it would be a very interesting thing, because then you'd have a real big holistic picture of everything, right? Like that could be quite. I can imagine that
Yeah,
being super interesting.
no, absolutely. And, maybe in the future, that's definitely where, it would be great to get to that point. But there's a lot of work, to be done before we get to that stage. But, and I think going back to what you said in terms of, yes, there is lots of data there. And, ultimately, the the whole data sharing and breaking down those silos is where we're going to need to go to. And I say that's, everyone. I think it's been quite a challenge for a lot of other organisations where, people have got data that, another part of the organisation want and could utilise and, mutually sort of beneficial, sharing that data. So I don't think that's just us.
No,
But I think that's definitely where we need to get to.
And it's all about that. It's all about that other thing as well. It's having like a best in class modular tech, I like to call it, versus a closed system, right? And I have a big bias for modular tech. I love having like the best in class little things that you can use, because you can always find a tool that does something slightly better. Yes, I imagine tech eventually could get very expensive like that. But if you can find those tools and find a way to connect them, it gives you so much more power than having that one big clunky system that you can't get everything. It doesn't really work. You always have to do workarounds all the time and stuff like that. So my question for you then, you have an idea for a product, right? We can make an idea up. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me an example of one that you've got. How do you measure the impact of that on the actual day-to-day? Or do you do that yet or not? And how do you and do you have like a backlog of this stuff so you can learn from what's been you've done in the past, like all of the prompts you were talking about? Is it like a back catalogue of that type of stuff? So it's not a very clear question, but I hope you understand.
No, it's fine. I mean, we are definitely, it is very early days. So the two sort of products that our team are utilising at the moment, if I just sort of go through those. So we used a sort of an external site. It's actually a platform, Mind Studio. So some people might have heard of it already. I think I actually came across it via one of the sort of the AI newsletters. And it was instantly attractive to me because it was like a no code or a low code platform, and I was like, great. I've tried a little bit of Python coding, but I'm still getting there with my technical skills. And I thought, oh great, seem to be able to build app pretty fast. Let's give it a go. And I initially just was playing around with it in my own time, really, because I'm a bit of a geek like that at times. And built a a semi-reasonable product in a couple of hours, and so this one was initially it sort of started as like sort of a data analysis tool. So it was more just to sort of see what insights it brought, and I sort of prompted the background to have it as a focus more on candidate attraction and outreach, and look at these look at this data, what insights on can I draw from it, or an organization draw from it, centered around candidate attraction and then outreach. And that's sort of where it started, really. And then from there, a few more ideas grew. I sort of spoke to my team about it, and again, one of these lunch and learns, sort of gave a bit of a demo. And it then sort of started the feelers going here, like, oh, actually, could we get it to do this, and and there was so many different use cases potentially that it could be used for, to the point where it is now, which is it is sort of working with our regional transformation team, who we're really trying to build up a great place to work in each of our regional centres, and being another tool to be able to help them along with that is great, and it's great to be a part of it. And then so we're kind of in the wider testing phase at the moment. So in terms of impact, it's something that I'm working through at the moment as to how do I measure the impact of this particular tool, and then I'm literally at the start of that journey, but of course the big things, of course, will be the big things, the obvious ones, like is can we save money? Can we make better use of taxpayers' money? And that being, maybe more indirect in terms of, well, actually, it's not taken us as long to conduct this research. So, if you start thinking about people's hours and what they've worked, and we could, indirectly sort of save money there, and then their efforts can be utilised elsewhere. And as we talked about before, AI is almost there to to supplement us as humans and get rid of or say get rid, but automate more the mundane tasks and the anything to create save a bit of time,
the
right?
repetitive stuff, right? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So that's sort of my initial thinking, and then again, how I go about that is just being worked through at the moment.
No,
So
it's
still
interesting.
very
Do you know
early
what?
days.
Maybe I'll ask you in 6 months' time to come back and tell us how you're getting on. I think it'd be interesting to see your progression on this because it's super interesting. The thing is, right?
Absolutely.
The thing you said about Python, right? So for me, I like playing around with no-code tools or low-code tools and stuff like that, and I cannot program, right? I'm not a programmer. However, you can ask ChatGPT to give you the code based on what you're trying to do, right? It's that is quite a nice feature of being able to do this. But imagine there is someone out there that goes, right, I've got a really good idea and I don't know how to do this, but I want to try and do it. Okay. The moment you mention Python, I imagine people get scared, right? Because it's like, oh my God, what the hell do I do here? But could you just talk people through how they could use a no-code tool or low-code? Let's go no-code to build something very simple, right? Like you could use something like a create inclusive job descriptions based on your notes or a transcript that you've had or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think just off the top of my head. Do you think you could do that? And I think that could be quite beneficial to make people less scared.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll stick with Mind Studio because that's what I've utilised. And to be fair, they've been really supportive. There's like a whole Discord community as well that super
most
active.
tools do have Discord communities. I've noticed super engaged.
Yeah. So so I started off with an initial idea. Again, you could then even use ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whichever sort of is your preference, to do a bit of ideas generation as well. So you could be like, kind of got this idea, could you provide me a list with some ideas, how I could sort of take this app to the next level, or some different ideas based on this initial theme. So started off with that idea, and then so with Mind Studio, it's almost like automated workflows that are powered by AI, and you can sign up for free. I think they now give you like $5 worth of credit as well to begin with, and then you can choose which sort of AI model you would like to utilize. And what's cool is that you can get access to like the premium models like GPT-4 or like Claude's Opus now. And yes, they are a bit more expensive in terms of the input and the output. But it's really great to sort of play around and see how one responds in comparison to another. But just sort of going back to sort of initially starting, it just sort of takes you through to like the different steps, and then you end up creating like, it's like a little workflow almost, and it's just you can add on a block. You can get it to do an onboarding function, which might be something like it'll ask the user a question. So I don't know, let's say you're creating an app for like a movie idea generator, you're not quite sure which film you're going to watch. So it might say, what genre would you like to look at? So, and it might give you a drop down, or the user just enters, the sort of like an open text box, and then you can get sort of the next workflow, where you might have then either uploaded a PDF document that's got a list of loads of different films, for example. And so then it might just draw on that. But then you can then maybe get another block to be like, and then search or search this particular URL. Like, let's say you've already got a blog, like a website blog that talks about all these different films anyway. And you can get the AI to then, to go to that URL, have a look, and for relevant details, and then it can do all this in the background before it then presents an answer to the user. So you're almost prompting the system and doing all the heavy lifting for the user, so that they have that it's almost like the path of least resistance. As humans, we're inherently lazy, and we like as less clicks as possible, as less steps as possible. So it's taking all that work in the background and doing it, and just making it really simple for for the user. But yeah, and then so Mind Studio will help you sort of build this workflow. And then you can test it as well to see if it brings back sort of the answer that you were sort of expecting, or you can then go back in and tweak it and add bits in, take bits out. And it is very much experimentation, and very low risk as well. You don't have to put anything in there. You can get it to just draw on the web, or if you've just got a PDF document or a couple of other data sources, whatever it might be. Sales figures, it can just be put in there, and of course you control that. You don't have to put that in. Equally, you can take that back out again. And so I just had a play around, and again, they've got loads of like videos online for you to be able to follow along. They've got lots of documentation, and then they've got the community as well, where you can ask questions. So there's lots of different ways to sort of learn as you're building it. And it was very much, I was just building it as I was going. And it was a bit of it started off as a bit of a side project, and now it's actually being trialed, and we've got some a small user group in HMRC giving it a go, and it is very much a trial. It's just to sort of see what it produces there. Is it going to is it sort of similar to the stuff that was already being produced, and going from there, really.
So in 2 years' time, you're going to package this up, and you're going to be a founder. You'll be like an AI tech founder selling this business somewhere, because it's an awesome idea. But I love that. But the thing, I think this is why I really like talking to you, is because it's my bias as well, because I love just trying to break stuff. Like, whenever I've worked at a company, I'm always given the product to try and break it, because it's just like, what can it do? What can't it do? And I think that's how you learn. And there's so much online now. You just go to YouTube, you go to Discord. There are people creating so much content. If you get stuck, it's so easy to go and ask. And even if you have ChatGPT, to just ask it, like, I'm stuck on this. Can you tell me what to do next? Like, or can you help me like do the next thing? And this I find so powerful. I mean, me and a friend of mine, like, I'm a bit into my gardening at the moment, right? It's coming up to that time of year. Got a new composter, done all this stuff, starting to plant stuff with the kids around the garden. And I was like, well, I'm going to create a GPT for that. So I created my own GPT that can help me with the gardening. I'm like, what the hell do I do with this? What is this? Can I move this? How do I do that? And it's super interesting how it can actually give you the right information back super quick. And I'm like, this is what we need for recruitment. This is basically what we need. It's like, right, this is the situation we're in. What's the best next action? I think that's what's missing, right? Like, what is the best next thing? You're not necessarily asking AI to replace you, right? This is one of the things you hear. It's, how can it help you be better? How can it enable you to do more and to take better decisions, right? Because as you say, we can't process that much information. Like, it's impossible. So how can that help us?
Yeah, and I think the other sort of angle on it as well is, the tools that I've built, as you know, I'm not a developer. I've got a little bit of tech skills, but there's definitely more to be developed. And what I've done here really is, it's almost like a proof of concepts as well. It's like, do you know what? I have these ideas. Let's just build something, it's totally external to any of our
It's the
systems.
MVP. It's the MVP version.
It
This
is
is it.
exactly, it's exactly that. And I think what's been really powerful is then being able to go with this product, and it's like, I have this idea, here's my proof of concept, and I said it's an MVP. People listen a bit more as well, and they go, oh, all right, I can actually visualize that now and see how that would be helpful and how that adds value and how, longer term this is going to be really impactful. And I think sometimes it can be difficult, can't it? Especially when there is, the rate of the way technology is developing, and there is still this almost like this black box around Gen AI and what it actually does. But if you can be like, look, I've built this product and it's not very scary, this is what it does. Here's, you can visualize it, you can see it, you can have a play with it, and use it. Give me feedback, tell me what can make it better, tell me that this didn't work, and I'll go away and fix it. But by having that and be really open about it as well, to say, it's absolutely not perfect, and I don't think any of the products are, but being open and honest about that, and being like, this is its limitation currently, but I need your help to help me make this product better, so ultimately make it better for everyone. I think that's been really powerful, and that's everyone, from from our recruiters, getting their input on stuff, because then kind of brings them in as well and gives them that sort of sense of, oh, I've worked on this as well, this is now it's a team effort, all the way right through to key decision makers, key leaders, in terms of them sort of seeing what is the art of the possible. And then it really does start to get people's brain ticking, thinking, oh, it's been used for this particular use case.
How could we
Actually, if we
transition that
just did
into something
this,
else?
we could
Exactly.
do that. And I think it's sort of just breaking down that that unknown of what it actually can do, and just saying, hey, here's some use cases and this is how we're
And it's
using
also
it.
being built by, there are so many tools out there that are built by developers for recruitment to solve recruitment, because they've hired 5 people in their team or 10 people in their team, right? And they're like, oh, this was the problem with recruitment, I'm going to fix it. And it's like, but you don't fundamentally understand recruitment, right? The day-to-day of recruitment. And I think that what you're doing here is you're building something that's actually solving a real need that translates, which will eventually translate into a positive outcome. And one of the reasons why I wanted to start the Holistic Recruiter Club was because it's taking people who have a different kind of way of thinking about things, taking best in class from other teams, and how do you translate that into recruitment? But this is, in a way, is like the opposite of that. It's people actually seeing what's being done in TA and could potentially translate that into their day-to-day, which is a very interesting thing, because I don't think many companies do that, or many businesses think like that. And you're never going to become strategic unless you do the stuff you do. And it comes back to your original point, which is you have to be bold, you have to be brave, you have to be prepared to take the chance. Because if you don't, you're never going to be seen as anything other than order takers in TA. Really, this is the perception of TA, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So you're pushing that boundary, which I really love, and it's really pushing TA up there, right, with this type of stuff. I don't know if you agree or not. You might not disagree, but
I do. Absolutely. And I think there's definitely something to be said with sort of like multidisciplinary teams as well, because we have all got that different sort of angle of thought and coming at things from a different way. So it's been really useful. So that actually just not being afraid to just go ahead and give it a go, in terms of we've got this proof of concept, we've got these ideas that we've translated into real products that we're solving, and yes, we don't have the most technical background, but actually we understand our pain points in TA and the challenges that we want to overcome in our team, and so we've just gone ahead and built for that and brought people in got them to do some feedback, some testing, made, it's an iterative process, got the team involved in that, and continue to do so. And it's just one big journey that we're just continually learning, as we go ahead and keep building, these products that are just helping us in our day to day.
Yeah. And what type of, if somebody's listening now and they wanted to think about using some tools, what would your recommendation be for like the top accessible tools to try using that can actually work in recruitment?
So like specifically for recruitment, or just
no, but tools that you could, like, you wouldn't say OpenAI is for recruitment, but or ChatGPT for specifically for this, but like, are there any other tools that you've been using that the teams use that you've been pleasantly surprised with? A bit like Mind Studio, for example, it would be an example. Is there anything else that you would recommend people trying to play around with?
I suppose it depends what people want. I mean, I know something that our team have used a little bit, as in just a tool that you can just go and and utilize, would be so in videos been pretty cool, and some of us used that whilst we were building a sort of a promo video for our product. But we've had some really cool sort of videos off the back of that some of the team have just gone away and just had a play around with. And I mean, we've got a dedicated recruitment marketing team, and I'm not saying that that they're going ahead and using InVideo, but it's really cool to see again what's sort of the art of the possible with some of the video tools.
Yeah.
If you think about all the different elements of talent acquisition, recruitment marketing, and candidate attraction is a really big piece as well. So it's looking at how can we bring these tools in and use it in that space as well. So I've been quite impressed with the InVideo tool. I'll be honest, because I've tended to use more of the chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. I'd probably need to go back and sort of go over the latest tools again.
What's your preference of the three, out of interest?
I'm not going to give you a straight answer on that, because I think they're all good for different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think my go-to definitely is ChatGPT more, but definitely probably more for the data analysis side. Getting it to maybe try and debug some snippets of code on the limited times that I will go and utilize it, just to sort of move forward with some of the projects I'm trying to work on. But I think for things like more human sounding, a bit more conversational, I'm actually really liking Claude, and Claude 3, the Opus model. I'm very, very impressed with, and I'm starting to use that more and more, I'd say.
Okay.
But yeah, they're probably definitely my go-to sort of two initially. I do. It sounds really bad. I tend to sometimes forget about Gemini. I think because it was maybe not quite there for so long, and then it has actually now.
It's not in your habits as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, isn't it? People just automatically, Google search, and it's like, oh, actually, let's bring it round. But one other that I actually really recommend for people to use if they're not using it is Perplexity AI.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of like research for different sources in my current role. But I've also done studying. I've recently just sort of finished my CIPD qualification, and I used Perplexity to find different sources, and it saved me hours and hours of researching, just to be able to. For those of you that haven't used it, I sort of typed in whether it was, say, like my assignment question, or my, I had my idea for my business research projects, and I just basically asked it to find me 10 peer-reviewed journal articles that supported my thesis. theory, and then 10 that disagreed with it or, challenged it. And just being able to, to sort of get a bit of a head start on some sources was fantastic.
Yeah.
And also with it gives you a bit of a snippet of the article, so you can have a quick scan and think, do you know what, actually, is this worth me reading the full article, or can I just skip to the next one? And I think that was quite a powerful tool.
And
So
that's
yeah,
the
I think
powerful of these
Perplexity
tools, isn't it? Okay,
is
all
really
right.
good
So
one.
people should try Perplexity, and for a bit of fun in video. Or
Yeah.
Perplexity could also be fun if you're into lots of research and stuff, right? Okay. And I realise we've been talking for over 50 minutes now, and that's gone super quick. So I am going to ask you one last question. What would you want people to leave listening to this podcast? What would you want them to think or do with AI?
Just don't be afraid to explore and to fail and to just keep going. It's very overwhelming. There are a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of, what ifs. There's a lot of not quite sure exactly how it works. But I think, just don't be afraid to try it. And you're not going to break it. Just of course be careful with what you're doing and what you're inputting into there. But go for that low hanging fruit, the low no risk of external data, external platforms, and just have a play, get comfortable with the basics, and then go from there.
So explore, fail, and keep going. You heard it here first from Siobhan. Perfect. Well, no, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad we managed to get the time in, and I'm so happy to be able to share, or you be able to share your story and what you're doing, and hopefully this will inspire some more people to go out and to try and do exactly what you were saying, which is just try it and don't worry about failing.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks for having me, John. It's been great.
Cool. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.